Um, whew. So, if you have your card and you have your pen, you're in good standing. I remember, and it was pointed out to me as soon as I walked in the door and put a slide up and put cards back there, that I said we weren't going to have a quiz today. I know, we're not actually having a quiz. It's just an in-class work, right? So we'll get to that in a minute. As you may have noticed, last week, if you were here with us, sometimes things take a turn and I jump off the rails a little. Normally when that happens, you'll see my face change. I'll look at Amy almost like I'm audible. All right, it's an audible, babe. I hope you're okay. And then she holds on to her seat a little, literally, and then we go. Having said that, I skipped a couple things last week that I needed to get into. So this first part is going to be just a follow-up from that, like here's what we missed, and then into today's main area of discussion. Everybody does that. So we are still talking about disciple-making culture, right? So that's the same topic. This time we're going to dive into relational environments and how this works a little bit more, but like I said, we're going to catch up on some of the other things. Last week it was about intentional leadership, and we got through the live it part, right? That was kind of what we got through. There's supposed to be 3 parts because it's almost mandatory. If you stand up here, you have to have 3 things to say. I learned that once. That stuck with me somewhere along the way. And so we got through 1, but this will be a quick one. So communicate it. Our communication needs to be clear, concise, repetitive, and thoughtful. Jesus was pretty repetitive to his disciples. When we look and see what he spoke about, he kind of said a lot of the same things over and over because he knew who he was talking to, right? He was talking to human beings, and some of them were kind of knuckleheads. I did say it. I was going to ask, can I say that? But I think we know that some of his apostles, some of the disciples were kind of knuckleheads, and I know I can be that way too. Paul was pretty repetitive. John the Baptist was super repetitive. He kind of was a one-trick pony. Is that a thing, right? Okay, good. I always look around just to make sure I have those right. But we need to really think about and focus on how we communicate and what we communicate. And when it comes to discipleship, it's something that you're going to hear over and over, and you've been hearing it all year at some point in organizations and large families. If we don't communicate it clearly and repetitively, we drift away from things, right? The shiny new program, the shiny new whatever it might be, and we go, oh, that sounds awesome, let's do that. Oh, that sounds awesome, let's do that. And we jump around and we never stick to keeping the main thing. So that was part of that communicate it. The other thing that the books that we're looking at mentions in intentional leadership of discipling is pruning things. We need to be intentional about what things might be hindering us from our focus. If we're really trying to bless everybody, there's a lot of sneezing. I'm getting nervous up here. I need a... yeah, there's some pruning, all right. I've talked about it before, doing what's good, better, best, and how great Amy was about kind of making that a thing in our house with our kids. Yeah, this thing is good, but what's better or what's best? And trying to do that. For example, one of our first 2 years overseas, we were doing English corners, which we thought sounded like a cool idea. We go out onto the campus, free English corner, just come talk to a native English speaker. And then we learned that it really was an English corner because there were literally hundreds of students coming, and we were backed into corners surrounded by people all asking us the same questions, right? Oh, do you like Chinese food? Can you use chopsticks? What do you all of these questions. And I realized at some point that their local professors probably said, oh, you're going to the English corner here. Here are 3 to 5 questions you can ask the foreigners, because it was the same one over and over. It was a great outreach, but at some point we realized we need that Thursday night or that Friday night to really work with the people who showed a real interest. People of peace. Does that mean we shouldn't keep doing something? it's a weird balance, and especially for a church, for a family, if it's got a discipleship connection, we want to do it. If it doesn't, then maybe we have to look at it. I know for us, right, we were looking for people of peace, and when we found them in those big gatherings, it's almost like that public, social, personal gatherings that we talked about a few weeks ago. We had this huge public one, and then the people that kind of stuck around and had more in-depth questions about love, about peace, about why are you here really, having those conversations. So then we had to switch, and from having these big English corners with hundreds of people, we started having Bible studies with 10 people, 8 people. And honestly, the coolest part for us was over time, God worked through that. We had to prune some of that, not do some of those bigger things, so we could focus on the smaller thing. And right, we see Jesus doing that. He talked to all the big crowds, but then he did his work with his disciples, or even with just a few of them going up on the mountain, having time alone to pray. But those small Bible studies, within about a year and a half, in Changsha, right? Yeah, I'm confirming with the CEO of hospitality. We were doing Bible studies. We had too many, so we had to have them in 3 different locations all at the same time with a couple of other teachers that we were working with, right? If we had continued to do the English corner, it was good, but we'd have never gotten to those Bible studies on a Friday night with 30, 40 people if we had kept doing the big thing instead of pruning it to do the more intimate work of discipleship. So that's something that we need to consider and see Jesus as example in that. So clarity, we got to have clarity about this discipleship stuff, because if we don't have clarity, we lack focus, and we kind of do all these good things all over, but without any discipleship, right? That can be a little tricky because it's called mission drift, and maybe you've seen this in where you work or something, right? Oh, here's the mission statement that everybody has, and nobody knows in the company what it really is, and certainly they don't know how we're doing any of it, right? Really. So we got to have clarity about that, and that's something that some other people have been working on. Hey, Clint. And you're going to be able to see that now. They can see it now, right? You can see it now. You can see. We'll talk about it some next week more in detail, but if you want to get a preview, check out the church website, and you're going to see it. And that was part of that idea of communication and pruning, was that every yes we say, something yes to something, is 1,000 no's to something else, right? That's just a cost proposition. If I cost benefit, if I'm doing this, then I'm by definition not doing this other thing. So being intentional about picking what we're doing and how we're doing it to make disciples is pretty important. All right, get out your cards. Question number one. And look, again, this isn't a pop quiz, right? This is just some homework or classwork. What focus and function would you say? So this is opinion, so you can't get it wrong unless you just leave it blank. Then it's wrong. What focus or function would you say the church here has been the past, I don't know, however long you've been here? What would you say it is? We talked about all of these a couple times now. Week 2 of this series, last week a little bit, but not as much. Culture, just as a reminder too, culture is just the way a church naturally functions under no pressure, right? Just the way it actually functions. Not what it talks about necessarily, but what it does. So have we primarily been educational, attractional, missional, or organic, home-based? What do you think? Now remember, educational was the come and learn, come sit and learn. Attractional was kind of more of the showmanship stuff. Missional is just come and do something without much learning. And the home fellowship was like, let's just be here together, inclusive, and not do outreach. If you had to pick one, that generally, right, most of the time is what the culture is here, which one would you think it would be? Just write it down. You can just write educational, attractional, missional, or home. If you want to phone a friend, talk to the person next to you. That's okay. I'll give you a moment. Talk it through. And it's okay if you don't agree either, right? That's all right. You don't have to agree with each other. But that's question number one. And you don't even have to put your name on it if you want. Like, it's okay. These can be anonymous. You have to agree? Well, you're a smart man. All right. So hopefully you got a number one down. Number two, this question is going to be a little more personal. A little more personal. We talked about the different stages of discipleship from dead, and I keep going back here because it helps me locate this in space. Dead in sin, dead. Infant, newly baptized, right? A child, disciple, young adult, and then parent, right? And I'll put these up here. Before somebody asked last time, well, what are we supposed to be? Because I shared those before. This is what most churches are. They're one of these four. And somebody said, well, what are we supposed to be, Buster? Oh, how about that? I said, yeah, I guess I should put that up. The goal is to be a discipleship focused with a function of going and making. Actually going, right? Out these doors that we have. Go and make disciples. That's kind of the goal. So this next question. Warren went over this stuff really good. Oh, it's kind of small. I apologize. So I'll read some of that to you. Dead, of course, is outside of Jesus. Infant, somebody newly baptized. So their kind of frame of reference is a little bit unsure, unknowing, ignorant, meaning the actual definition, like I don't know, not and being confused and being dependent. So infants often say things like, why do I need to go to church? They're still baptized, right? They're new believers, but they still are young in their disciplehood. Why do I need to go to church? If I just pray and read my Bible, isn't that enough? Do I have to go, right? Then the child is still more self-centered. They're more idealistic. It's all good or bad. It's black and white. They say things like, oh, why are there so many people? The church is too big. Or I don't get fed at church. I think I should go somewhere else, or I didn't like the music today. That wasn't very, okay. That's where they are in their discipleship journey at that moment. Young adults are the ones who serve others with joy. They think about other people first. They're more willing to sacrifice for other people. They say things like, I think I could lead a Bible study or small group with a little help. In my daily reading, I came up with a question. Could we talk about it? Can we share and you help me out a little? Or I noticed a ministry that seems to need some help. How can I be involved? That's the young adult stage of discipleship. And then, of course, parent. You might put parent. So I'm going to ask you to, number two, to write where you think you are right now. The parent is the one saying, I'm working with a specific ministry. Would you like to come along and help? They're pulling people along with them, right? These are the disciple makers. I'm trying to explain the Bible to a coworker who's asked me, and we're kind of talking about it. Can you pray for me as I have discussions with my coworker, right? Or they'll say things like, I know that discipleship begins at home. Can you help hold me accountable to intentionally disciple my kids? Those are things that parent disciples say, disciple makers. So let me back it up again for you. Where are you? And again, this is anonymous. I don't know. I don't see any visitors per se. So are you more in the infancy stage? Are you more in the childhood stage? Are you more in the young adult stage? Or are you over here in the parent stage? You good? Anybody got that question? Where would you say you are right now? And these aren't necessarily all linear. It's not like you graduate, right? Like we have kindergarten graduations. Did we think some of them weren't going to make it? I don't understand that. Maybe I'm a little old. Yeah, of course you passed. Woo, graduate. Like, come on. Anyway, my son even, right, for high school graduation, he didn't want to go to his high school graduation because he's like, I'm already going to college. Like, what? I don't need this. I'm like, okay, buddy, your mom does. You're going to go. So anyway, having said that, we not necessarily graduate up the discipleship stage, across the stage. Sometimes we go back a little or forward. Where do you think you are right now? And then kind of a deeper question for us, for me at different points has been, how do I level up? How do I upgrade? How do I make it to that next step? What do I need to do? Who do I need to get help from? And do I even want to? Am I so comfortable in the stage that I'm in that I'm not really trying to follow Jesus, be changed by Jesus, and be on the mission of Jesus? That's a question that you got to ask. We have to ask ourselves. So think about that. Hopefully you got a number one and a number two. All right, now we're getting into the real nitty-gritty of today. You ready? You're like, man, Buster, this is a long review or catch-up. Yeah, I know. We'll get there. Relational environment. So this section, we've got create it, fight for it, model it. We're talking about a disciple-making culture, being disciples who make disciples. Well, if we're going to have a culture like that, if we're going to have a focus of discipleship and a function of go and make and be disciples who make disciples, we have to do these things. We have to fight for it. We've got to create that relational environment on purpose. It's not going to happen by accident. When we first went overseas, we were told, look, whatever expectations you have, don't. However you think it is going to go, it is not going to go the way you plan. It's just not. And we talked to people who had been there before. We talked with people who helped send other people there and had ties with the country for a decade or more. And we said, what should we expect? Nothing. Don't expect anything. What you need to do is go build some relationships and be like Jesus. That was it. They say you can have an idea of a plan or a program or a this or a that, but you need to create relationships, right? How many of you have heard this? How many of you have heard this? Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you... Oh, yeah. So that relational environment mattered. Being able to create it, fight for it, and model it. So here's some of the people. So how would we create this relational environment? Like I said, we would do English Corner things, right, with these massive groups. Then we started doing Bible studies. We'd go to barbecues with students who would invite us. And look, barbecue overseas, it's a different thing, y'all. And whatever you're thinking, that's not it. Trust me. Especially at a park with like a few thousand people, and you just rented a tree stump that had been hollowed out with like wood charcoal briquettes and animals that you've never seen before in a grocery store, right? Like but relational environments, getting together. This is, when we moved to a bigger city, we thought we might miss some of our people from central part of the country. And then we found out we could host these college retreats. College students from that city, college students from that city, college students from that city and that city, who only knew that there were about 12 to 15 Christians, disciples in their whole city maybe, right? Because it was kind of closed off. It wasn't like you advertised or had a sign out on your building. You were meeting in someone's apartment, right? And so here they are kind of alone. We have this wonderful fellowship and all of these brothers and sisters around us, and they're in a country thinking, well, there's a billion of us, but there's probably, I know about 12 Christians, and that's it. And we found, okay, well, you're in this city, you're in this city. Come. You're all going to come to our city, and we're going to do this long retreat. And we built this relationship environment. So now, you guys over here from this city, you meet these Christians that are in college just like you, and these ones, and you start making connections. Relational environment matters, but you have to create it on purpose, right? That's some of our, that was Alien Weekend, right? You can see the little alien maybe in the picture on the left, on the wall, the little green thing, that's an alien. And we had that was the theme, right? About being an alien in this world. Because we were obviously aliens in that world, right? It was pretty obvious when we walked down the street, we were not like everybody else in that country. So we were trying to encourage them with that for that weekend. The other picture on the right, the one little white boy, that's our son. But having that relational environment was important. When we're trying to make disciples, we have to relate to each other. We have to connect. Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. That's when you start being able to have those discussions. That's when you're able to really disciple somebody and take them from death to infancy. From death to infancy. Somebody cared about you enough to share the gospel with you. Somebody cared about you enough to disciple you. And it was through a relationship. I'm almost 100% sure of that. Very few people just kind of do this accidentally, right? All right. So create it. 2 requirements to create a relational environment. 2 things. I hope you're doing this in your care group. If you're not, here's your chance. We need a few things. It has to be intentional. Small groups are the personal level that we talked about. Even smaller groups is the transparent level. That's the discipling level with 3-4 people. Our first 8 years, 7-8 years, we had people we worked with, but not a team. Does that make sense? We had some other foreigners we worked with here and there from all kinds of places, man. I mean, and from all different backgrounds. But when you're overseas and there's, 5 Christians in your city, you learn to work together, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. But that transparent group, 3 or 4 people, where you can be really honest, really open. And you need truth, and you need safety. In your care groups, I hope and pray that you are offering a chance for everyone to be honest and feel safe. That's how we're going to open up. That's how we're going to confess our sins one to another. That's how we're going to be able to pray for each other authentically, truly, right? I can pray in general terms for Jason, but if we have a relationship where there's truth and safety and we can talk, then I can really pray for Jason, and he can pray for me. But it's tough to do that if we don't have honesty and safety. There's all these cool psychology discoveries in the last 100 years, and I see them in the Bible from hundreds and thousands of years ago, right? Things like unconditional positive regard. Like, oh, that's a cool psych thing, right? Oh, unconditional. But I see it in the Bible. I see God loving me as I am and offering me grace and mercy no matter what I've done. I love it when science or pseudo soft sciences, whatever the case may be, have some kind of big discovery, and I'm like, well, that's in the Bible, man. What are you kidding? That's 2,000 years old. Come on. But truth and safety are some of those things. The client-therapist relationship is one of the most important factors to having a good therapeutic outcome. And it's biblical, right? It's not. Nobody figured that out in the 60s. That was figured out by Jesus Christ, by God, and the Holy Spirit a long, long time ago. Truth and safety, finding people that you can connect with and be honest with. We have to fight for it. We're called to fight for our relationships one with another. So in John there, we talk about it. They're describing it, right? My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message. So disciples and disciple makers, disciples who have been made, that all of them may be one Father, fighting for that relationship. That relationship matters. That they all may be one Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. It's in our relationships that people can see Jesus was sent by God to save us, to save our neighbors. It's in relationship. How many of you just love conflict? Like, okay, good. How many of us avoid conflict when we can? Yeah, we do. But that's not fighting for unity. It's easier in the moment. The long-term ramifications are not good. It's just, I'm not a fan of conflict either, especially just for the sake of it. Although some people may argue with me about that who have known me in the past. Mainly my cousins, but that's that's family. I think at some point it becomes a value problem. Do I value my pride, my ego? Do I value being right over our relationship? But I think Jesus is pretty clear. We need to fight for our relationships. I think one of the challenges of the Western church is there's too many of them. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Let me back that up. I was in a Bible class not too long after we got back from overseas, and somebody asked, oh, we have all these different challenges. We don't have big enough buildings. We don't have this. We don't have that. And I was like, I don't think that's the problem. I think that we have too many options. They're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, if I don't like the singing at some church, I'll just go 2 blocks down and go to another one. And when I find out I don't like what they do in a class, I'll go to this other one. And when I find out I don't like the way they run, like, I don't have to fight for a relationship. I don't have to fight for community. I don't have to work things out with a brother or sister. I don't like what they said, right? Howie talked about this not too long ago, I think on a Wednesday night, right, from Matthew 18. If your brother or sister sins, or if there's some kind of fault between you, go to them, talk to them. It's so much easier to avoid conflict to just go, bye, I'll go to this church. Yeah.
Makes me think of, I say back in the olden days, 50s or 60s, because I'm not that old.
Okay.
But I'm not that young. Steak and potatoes is all you ate, and look at the healthy people. Now we have options, and look at the healthy people.
Right. Well,
Focus on steak and potatoes, and you focus on buffet, and look what you look like.
right. Keep the main thing the main thing. One of the most terrible experiences we had when we came back was going to a grocery store, thinking about options. Look, she's getting ready, right? I can see the sigh. And we got back, we went to a grocery store. There was more cereal options than we had seen in 12 years, right? It was overwhelming, the options. And it didn't make us better. We stood there. Yeah, thank you. I didn't want to, she's panic attack kind of, because there were so many choices, so many options. And when we were overseas, right, we worked with people that certainly wouldn't fit here. Now, I don't mean that in a negative against, I mean any individual church, because we worked with people from different denominations even, and came together enough to agree and say, hey, what do the red letters say? Can we start there? I mean, seriously, that was the conversation. Are you good with the red letters? Are you good with what Jesus said? One of those, when we started having 3 different Bible studies on Friday nights, because the English corners had gotten so big, and then we scaled it down and had Bible study with just 12 people, 8 to 12 people. And then it grew and grew, and now we're like, there's too many people in this apartment. Somebody's going to come and arrest somebody, right? Okay, well, that couple over there that we've been working with, they'll take a group over here, we'll take another group over there, and now there's 40 people studying, right? And having baptisms and the whole bit. Some of them, they weren't from the Church of Christ, but they wanted to come and worship together with us on Sundays. Can we agree on the red letters? Yes. There's plenty of things that Jesus taught that was enough for us to work together with and share that. Just share Jesus. Crazy, right? What a novel approach. Yes?
In John 6, a lot of disciples left Jesus, and he turns to his disciples and say, are y'all going to go away too? And they say, well, who can we go to? You have the words of life. And I think sometimes we lack the commitment to and the recognition of the gospel and Jesus' teaching to the point of making a commitment. A lot of times with regard to church hopping, there's no commitment to the particular church. There's a commitment to what we like.
Yes.
But there's not a commitment to a group of people or a group of men as elders that are leading us, or the folks, or what they're being discipled into. And we see that's why we don't fight for it, because there's not a commitment to it.
Yep. And there's so much in our relationships overseas that we had to fight for because there was no place else to go. Where else were we going to go to church, y'all? We're in someone's apartment, hiding, kind of, right? If a local brother or sister had something against somebody, they had to work it out. They weren't going. Where else were they going to go? And that's something that under persecution, the church grows. Where it's growing most in the world right now are those places because those people are fighting for it. They're fighting for their relationship with each other and with God. And they know they're in it together. That it's us. We got to do this, right? We're in this together. The other thing that we have to do is model it, right? So we talked about this. There's another question. Don't throw your cards away yet. There's one more question coming. But we have to model it. So John 13:15, I've given you an example that you should do just as I have done to you. 1 Timothy, set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. This one was easier for us in a way overseas because they watched everything we did. We didn't know it, but everything we did. So our first job overseas was at a university with about, was that 30? Huh? Oh, I think it was around 30,000 students, give or take. And we didn't know it. They played music and school announcements all over campus through like mushrooms and rock speakers that were around the pathways, right? We're walking with a student, and it's us and our 5-year-old, and we're walking, and these two students that are with us, they start giggling over something they heard, and we didn't quite make it out. We're like, oh, what was so funny? And they're like, oh, nothing. We're like, oh, come on, something. They said, oh, they were talking about you on the speakers. I was like, oh, what did they say? That made me really nervous, right? And they said, oh, they talked about how the Happy Family will be at the English Corner this Friday. And yeah, I was like, the what? The Happy Family. I was like, wow. So these are like school officials seeing God. And again, there were times we weren't so happy. To be honest and upfront with you, right? When you go into the market and there's weird animals hanging it's a little tough to be happy. But that was, so we were trying to model that, but then we tried to model our relationships too when we moved to a bigger city, and we still went. I think in Mogan Shan, we went on this mountain trip to go hiking with a bunch of our local brothers and sisters, right? And at that point, we had Emma, because I was carrying her in a backpack. She was like 11 months old, 12 months old, right after we adopted her. Caleb's there, and we're all staying together with all of them, right, for like a weekend on this trip, and we're hiking up the mountain. So I'm sweating. I got this kid on my back, right? So they got to see us. You know what I mean? They got to see us, and Caleb's like throwing stuff and running up ahead and doing like, hey, come back, on this mountain. So they got to see us parent. They got to see us do that, and they were watching, right? We're trying to model relationships with them and show them our relationships with our kids. We would go every Sunday after worship or before, because we had to change sometimes depending on if there were too many of us or people started asking questions or somebody come knock on the door and ask to see your papers, right? You're kind of like, oh, we might should switch up when we're having church next week. But we would go eat together, and there could be anywhere from 12 to 20 of us or more, right? So as Americans, sometimes we would put the kids over at a smaller table. I mean, it wasn't Thanksgiving, but it was like that, right? It was like the kids' table. And we're at this restaurant, and we got this big circle table. We're all eating, and our local friends would often bring someone along. So we have a visitor or something. We're like, oh, okay, we're eating. And we hear them talking to each other and pointing at the kids. And right, what do parents think? Somebody points at your kid over there. What do you think? What'd they do? What'd they do? Oh gosh, what did they do this time? But they were saying, we kind of talked with them more, and it's so interesting how you put your kids over at that table to foster independence and do it. Like they thought it was some kind of American tradition or something. Oh yeah, that way they have to order and do it. We're like, no man, this table's full. we wanted to be able to have adult conversations. There's nothing about that. But they're paying attention, right? And so we're doing this and we're modeling relationship, but we're modeling just life, right? And you only do that if you spend time together in this relational environment. So people got to see us trying to be disciples. We said it a week ago, what you win people with is what you win them to. So if you win them by getting them to come and sit, they're probably going to come and sit. If you win them by being a disciple and going and making disciples, right, they'll do that. So one of our favorite sisters, she saw discipleship happening, and I mentioned last week the couple that we baptized in the hotel pool, right? What I didn't mention was we didn't find them. We didn't go out and get them. Our Chinese sister did, because she went to college with one of them. And we met them before they got married. She brought them and tried to disciple them and asked us for help, right? So she was way over here, man. She was at this young adult parent stage almost on her own after 2 years of being a believer. After 2 years of being a disciple, she's like, oh, can you help me study with these people? And she's why they were baptized. And then when they had kids and they're asking questions, should we put our kids at the table over there for dinner? Or no, you don't have to do that. But here's some things, because right, their grandparents didn't want them to raise their kids that way. And so they're asking us, what do we do? How do we raise our kids in God? Now remember, some of these were people we met when they were 19 years old in college, and now they're 30, or 28 or something, having kids. And how do we do this? And so our role changed a bit. And look, this isn't. I don't want this to get in the wrong way. This isn't about necessarily, okay, I'm the one that has to take this person from death outside of Jesus Christ all the way to parenthood by myself, or just me. Maybe you're the one who gets them from death to infancy, right? Maybe you do that. Maybe that's you. Maybe God does that through you. Maybe the Spirit moves in a way that's your role. Maybe somebody else takes them from infancy to childhood, right? Yeah, because I know it's daunting. I know it can sound like, oh, Buster, what? I don't know if I can do this. Here's the truth of the matter. You can't. You can't. I couldn't. It was God working through me by making myself available that happened at all. Any of those times it happened. So maybe you're here getting these people to hear. Maybe you're over here and you're helping the young adults make it all the way to parenthood, to be disciples who make disciples. That might be what your role in this is. Nobody is, in a family, is everybody dad? No, of course not, right? In this family, we're not all discipling individually from death to parenthood. It doesn't work that way. Maybe you do that sometimes, but probably not. The Lord is going to help you figure it out along the way. Grady, I heard this from Grady the other day. There's different cookbooks, the same kitchen, right? How we work as disciple makers will be a little different, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be, it's not cookie cutter. There's not one cookbook. There's not one recipe. We're following the Bible, certainly, but we see in the Bible Jesus treating different disciples a little bit differently, giving them what they need when they need it. I'm not going to work with a young adult Christian the same way I'm going to talk to or work with somebody who's dead in their sins. It's not going to work. Question number 3 on your card. Oh, speaking of, before we get to the question, one more example. So our very first month or two, again, no expectations. We didn't know what was happening. I had the great experience of jumping on a discipleship moment that someone else was having. Pretty good, right? I just kind of snuck in, did a little seed throw, a little seed planting, and ran off before any of the work had to be done. It was really smooth on my part, I must say. I'm just kidding. Amy was talking with a young woman about love, right? And the young woman was talking about how you could fall in love in college in that particular country, but you couldn't marry for love because there were all these different requirements about who you could marry and why, and how your parents had to sign off on it. When we first arrived in that country, if you were a college student, you couldn't get married unless both parents signed a waiver, right? I mean, it was illegal. Even if you were 22 years old, you couldn't get married unless both. That law changed while we were there. But she's talking with this young woman about love, and she's like, "Oh, so you love him?" And she's like, "Yeah. Why else would I have married him?" "Oh, I thought maybe your family approved." Or she's like, No, we love each other." "Oh, well, did you have big job prospects?" Or she was like, "No." That wasn't it at all. I'm like, okay, cool. So she was really getting confused. And I'm overhearing it, and as I'm walking around the corner, this girl kind of looks up, the college student. Well, how many times have you been in love?" And I said, "Oh, I've been in love 5 times. And and she looked at Amy like, "Oh, did you hear? He said he's been in love 5 times, right?" She kind of had this look like, "Oh my gosh." And Amy was kind of sitting there like, so I heard all that, and I kind of went back and looked, and I said, "Well, I love Amy. I love my son. There were 2 other times where we were with child and lost those children. I said I was in love with them. So, but the other time I've been in love is with God, and that's the one that makes all the other ones possible for me." And then I quickly exited the room. Right? So Amy ended up explaining, discipling, and that was the first person we baptized overseas. And it was really just from trying